if we're just able to recognize that within ourselves, right? Our addiction to thinking, how over time, through our evolution of consciousness, I guess you could say, has developed into just continually thinking, and how we've created a mind-made self that we call Cal, that we call a videographer, a powerlifter, a weightlifter, all these different types of concepts, and who I think I am versus who I actually am. And if we can relinquish that, surrendering to our thoughts, letting go of those thoughts by over time just observing them, we'll notice that we will no longer be controlled by those thoughts. We will no longer be engulfed by those thoughts. You're still gonna have thoughts. You're still gonna have all these things arising. There's nothing wrong with them arising. Thoughts are not the issue itself. It's as simple as this. It's where your attention is being placed. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 55 of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, non-Mr. Dr. Jason /Scalora. It is just me today, guys. We're rocking a nice little solo episode for number cinco. Today, we're not cutting any corners. We're getting right into this bad boy. So without any further ado, we're going to get right into this quote that my aunt sent me. So shout out Aunt Jill. Thank you for this topic today, because I think this quote will be a great segue into what we are talking about today. You make your life hard by always being in your head. Life is simple. Get out of your head and get into the present moment. By S. Big Nut. Yes, get your head out of the gutter. That's his name. There is substantial amounts of truth just in those two sentences alone. We make our life harder by being in our head, aka we constantly place our attention within our mind on thoughts based on the past or the future. And so, easy enough, all of you know this watching now, there is no such thing as the past. There is no such thing as the future. All we have is here and now. And even that in itself is a limiting concept, because really no label can be placed on what is going on right here, right now. And so when we place our attention on those things that are not real, right? How I like to think about it is like we're thinking about things that are not real. And I think that sentence alone can give it a bad negative connotation. It is important to note that the past can be used as a tool, as the future can too. Both are extremely valuable and help guide our lives in a very preferable way, right? We learn from our mistakes, right? And we plan out future scenarios that are beneficial to us and maybe like the people around us, whatever you're trying to plan. But when we're constantly in that state, right? And it's not necessary to think about, it's not necessary to use, a lot of times we're making our life a lot harder. We're exaggerating this present moment, right, into something that it's not. This is all done through thinking. And as Eckhart Tolle notes, and this is one of the big things that I'm huge on, and I'm still, I guess you could say, battling today, it's the reduction of thinking. It's the reduction of suffering. Seneca, or I believe it was Seneca said this, and a lot of Stoics say, we suffer more in imagination than in actual reality. Actual reality does not contain nearly as much suffering as we may think. And as I noted on a previous couple of podcasts ago, a thought can generate the same emotions and feelings and, I guess you could say, sensory experience as an actual experience itself. Subconsciously, your body can't tell the difference. If you're generating negative thoughts, if you're generating fearful scenarios in your head, your body's going to have the same type of reaction in terms of feelings, in terms of emotions. There's no difference there. And of course, there's an actual difference there because one's hypothetical and one's real, right? But we are generating immense amount of suffering through our own minds. And so many people don't even know this. They constantly place their attention on their thoughts, right? And they're always fixated on the issue itself, right? And rather than getting to the root cause of the issue, which is thinking. Thinking is the root that generates this suffering, right? And so if we can take a step back and really look at this and just be like, take an outside observer perspective and realize that we're creating, don't get me wrong, life is suffering, right? We are going to suffer no matter what in our life, right? But if we can recognize and realize that we are creating, I would say, a significant portion of the suffering ourselves, then we can realize and recognize that we can reduce a significant portion of the suffering. It's real simple. It's not that difficult, right? And so if we can get out of our heads, right? If we can get out of our minds, if we can enter the present moment, if we can, I guess you could say, let go of our mind-made selves or the ego or the false self, whatever you want to call it, right? However you stop this is it. Stop identifying with our thoughts as ourselves. Then we can really reduce all of our suffering. Don't get me wrong, you're still going to face hard circumstances in your life. You're still going to face tough times in your life, no doubt about it. But those tough times won't be as tough if you are able to enter the present moment, right? And not think about all these scenarios of like, oh my God, oh, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? Oh man, based on my past experience, I'm going to suck at this. If you can enter the present moment, and Jay and I talk about this all the time, and tackle stuff as it is in baby steps, right? So instead of focusing on the entire task at hand, right, which might be in front of you, just start chipping away at it. Days, weeks, months go by before you know it, you've conquered the entire task. If we can realize that if we're able to enter the present moment right now, life will be a lot more simple, right? And it won't be as exaggerated. And what it really comes down to, and as I noted before, is identifying with your thoughts. We as human beings, at least in the Western side of the world, I'm not too sure about the Eastern side of the world, are incredibly, incredibly addicted to thinking. First one, I am this myself, right? And recently I have been falling back into the trap of falling asleep, right? Meaning I have just being unaware that I am continually identifying with my thoughts, right? And so when this occurs, when this happens, when we identify with our thoughts, a lot of times we just enter this unaware state where our minds just go on autopilot, right? And we're constantly thinking about past and future scenarios that aren't even real, and it's generating us an immense amount of suffering. If we can get to the root of the problem and stop identifying with our thoughts, how? Through things such as meditation, just pure mindfulness, right? Just observing our minds, right? Don't try to, because I remember, I'll get to this a little bit later, don't just try to suppress your thoughts, be like, I'm going to stop thinking right now. You'll only start to think more. But if you could take a step back and really observe that through meditation, you don't even have to meditate. You could just place your attention on your own awareness and observe the thoughts that are arising, right? And just over time, your monkey mind will slowly decide to trickle down, right? But getting back to the point on hand, when we are able to stop identifying with our thoughts, stop identifying with our mind, we will be able to simplify this moment, I guess you could say, and make life a lot more simple, right? Because a lot of times we place these labels, these, I guess you could say, images and ideas onto reality, right? These projections through our mind, and we make what is inherently out there appear a lot worse than it actually is. For instance, when I'm just viewing this camera, right? This camera is just a camera, right? It just is how it is. But if I start to exaggerate and just feel like, oh, dude, I could have this camera, I could have this. I'm like, it doesn't have this quality. It doesn't shoot in 120 FPS, which would be nice. More than 1080p. We're just projecting all these things onto the camera, and it appears to us that it's less than, right? But inherently, in reality, beyond our attention, beyond our mind, beyond, according to us, it's just a camera. It just functions how it functions. It just is how it is. So with that example in mind, right, kind of paralleling that, project all these things onto reality, right, and just through our minds alone, we're dividing it, right? We're making so many more pieces, and it just gets so much more complicated and so much more mental work and the like. It just gets to a point where it's mentally exhausting to even deal with, and even more so if you're trying to go after a goal, go after something that you want to achieve, it gets incredibly hard to do, right? And so going back to the quote on hand, so I'll repeat it one more time. You make your life hard by always being in your head, right? We touched on that. You gotta place your attention here on the present moment. You gotta stop identifying with your thoughts. You gotta stop identifying with this mind-made self, this false self that doesn't exist beyond your mind, and come into your own true nature of who you actually are, right? This neutral being in this moment, here and now, right? And so life is simple, right? Life really is simple. It's just a neutral reality out there. Of course, we're going to face tough things. Of course, we're going to have obstacles that we can go over, right? Of course, and this is not to say that life is simple. Oh, life is easy. Yeah, no. You'll never face any obstacles again. No. what we're pointing out here, life is simple, simply means that you are life itself. You are already whole. You are already complete. And of course, understanding this moment here and now is incredibly complex. And human beings, I don't care. I don't care when, who, or what, right? We will never, ever completely understand this moment here and now. It's just, or everything in reality. It's just simply too complex. We will never do that, right? But if you can realize that you're whole and complete in this moment, intuitively, without your mind trying to understand this moment, right? Intuitively, you already know, right? You already are the very thing that you are trying to understand. If you can just recognize that, right? And rather than trying to understand everything out there and recognize that intuitively you've already got it all figured out, right? Not saying you necessarily have your life situation figured out, that hypothetical thing that you're going through right now in your life. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in your own nature and who you are as a being, regardless of standards, regardless of goals, that you already have everything figured out. That's when life becomes a lot more simple, because you can fall back on that and recognize, okay, even though we're human beings, right? We naturally strive for progression, right? We all have goals. We all have dreams. We all have things we want to attain, right? But if we can just fall back on our own nature and realize we're whole and complete, right? We won't necessarily be as attached to those goals, consciously attach those goals, and just continually thinking about them and manipulating the present moment into a means to get that goal. And we can realize the moment is an end in itself, kind of spiraling horizontally towards that end, right? And eventually you'll get that end, but you'll enjoy the process a lot more, right? You'll develop habits that breed, as a byproduct, happiness, and you'll be able to enjoy every moment as you're getting to that end. So the moment is no longer that staircase leading up to that hypothetical goal or standard you want to achieve. You recognize that the moment is an end in itself, and it's just pure bliss. It's just pure neutrality, and you're just able to feel whole and complete and recognize yourself and be really authentic. Entering the last part of this quote, get out of your head and get into the moment. Exactly what I just said there, right? Get out of your head, meaning just naturally surrender to your thoughts, let go of your thoughts, right? By just observing your attention, right? Observing your thoughts. And as time goes on, you'll notice that over time, your internal habits, the most essential part of who you are and your ability to live a preferable life, your internal thinking habits, right? Your perception of reality, oh my God, just me saying it gets me fired up, because I just want people to, I want people to like be able to see this, and really recognize it within themselves and live a preferable life for themselves and reduce the imaginative suffering that they have within their own lives, or they generate within their own lives a lot of the time. If we're just able to recognize that within ourselves, right? Our addiction to thinking, how over time through our evolution of consciousness, I guess you could say, has developed into just continually thinking, and how we've created a mind-made self that we call Cal, that we call a videographer, a powerlifter, a weightlifter, all these different types of concepts, and who I think I am versus who I actually am, right? And if we can relinquish that, right, through surrendering to our thoughts, letting go of those thoughts by over time just observing them, we'll notice that we will no longer be controlled by those thoughts. We will no longer be engulfed by those thoughts. You're still going to have thoughts. You're still going to have all these things arising. There's nothing wrong with them arising, right? There's nothing wrong. Thoughts are not the issue itself, right? It's as simple as this. It's where your attention is being placed. And it, just like life is simple, right? Just shifting your attention to here and now, the simple things around you, right? Seeing everything as whole and complete. It is as simple as that. And of course, I want to make an important note here. Your attention is naturally, just like any other habit, right? Your body has a natural tendency to want to place your attention on your thoughts, right? This is going to be a long process. This is going to be a long journey, right? But it's going to be a great one. It's a hypothetical journey, right? It's a hypothetical quest, right? But the more you're able to recognize this now, right? It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what race, gender, ethnicity. We all have conscious awareness. We all have this ability. If you can take a step back, be aware of your own awareness, right? Change our own internal habits and behaviors in terms of where our attention is being placed, what we believe, what our values are, what our attitudes are. You'll notice we'll have a slow and gradual shift over time through baby steps, and our reality, and I cannot tell you this enough, your reality will drastically change in terms of the emotions, the feelings you have on a daily basis, right? How you're able to handle situations in your life in conjunction with when these habitual feelings and emotions arise. You'll notice that you'll be able to take a step back and naturally, this is the goal, naturally just be aware of your thoughts in the present moment and respond in a manner that is proactive and allows you to not respond in a way that generates more suffering. And with all that being said, guys, love yourself because I love you. This has been episode 55 of The Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, not Mr. Jason Dr. Scolora, Mr. Cal Boris. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And if you want to see more solo episodes, just let me know, baby. I love doing this. So, yeah, guys, love yourself because I love you. Stay handsome and peace the fuck out.